Marilyn came to her bedroom door. I was sitting in the living room, and she said, "Good night, Mrs. Murray. I think I'll turn in now." And she closed the door. And, of course, after that, I did the usual things about preparing the house for the night, and I went to my room.
At 3:30 a.m., alerted, she says, by some instinct, Mrs. Murray noticed the phone cord under Marilyn's door. Usually Marilyn disconnected the phone at night.
So, of course, I was alarmed. I called Dr. Greenson.
This is essentially the story Mrs. Murray has told for 23 years.
I went around to the front of the house before Dr. Greenson arrived.
The bedroom curtains were closed. She went to get a poker.
Turning the curtains back, I saw Marilyn lying on the bed, nude, and I was just alarmed.
Not long after 3:30, Dr. Greenson arrived. He went round to the side of the house, broke the bedroom window, and entered. He wrote later, "I could see that Marilyn was no longer living. There she was, bare shoulders exposed, the phone clutched fiercely in her right hand." Marilyn's own physician, Dr. Hyman Engelberg, was summoned, and the police called at 4:25.
August 5th, 1962, Los Angeles, Brentwood. A woman lies face down on her bed, unclothed, still. The phone in her hand is silent. She is identified as Marilyn Monroe, 36 years old. Hours earlier, she was alive. By dawn, she is gone. The official cause is acute barbiturate poisoning. The ruling is probable suicide. Almost immediately, questions begin. Why was there a delay in calling police? Why were witness statements inconsistent? Why did key evidence appear incomplete? Was this truly the final act of a troubled life, or the conclusion of something far more complicated? The final confirmed hours of Marilyn Monroe's life remain fragmented.
Marilyn was stretched out, face down, in a soldier's position, catty-corner of the bed. Obviously, she'd been placed in that position. And I was shown the nightstand by her table, by her bed, and it was about 8 or 10 empty bottles that had contained medicine, all barbiturates. Dr. Greenson said she must have swallowed them all. I looked in the bathroom for a half-empty glass or a glass that had been used. There was none. I asked for, had anybody seen a document, any written statements, and no one had seen any written statements. There was no suicide note, and the only thing we had there at that time was some empty bottles.
And when you got to the house, who let you in?
Mrs. Murray, the housekeeper. She became very concerned and called Dr. Greenson, who lived just a few minutes away.
And what, if anything, did you ask Dr. Greenson?
I asked, since this all occurred shortly after midnight, and the call came to me at 4:25 a.m., I asked why it took 4 hours to call the police.
What was the response, if any, from Dr. Greenson?
Well, Dr. Greenson finally spoke up and he said they had to get permission from the publicity department of the studio before they could notify anybody.
According to reported accounts, she spent the evening of August 4th at her home. Present in the house were several individuals: her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, her physician, Dr. Hyman Engelberg, and her publicist, Pat Newcomb. Witnesses later stated that Monroe appeared distressed. Some accounts suggest she made phone calls that evening. Others report she was isolated.
At the side of her bed, there was a lot of Seconal, which I had never given her. Also, the autopsy showed that her liver had a lot of chloral hydrate. I never gave her chloral hydrate, and I don't think any doctor in the United States gave it to her. She must have bought it in Tijuana.
Around midnight, Eunice Murray reportedly became concerned when Monroe's bedroom light remained on. She claims she noticed the door was locked. Murray contacted Dr. Greenson, who arrived and entered the room, reportedly by breaking a window. Inside, Monroe was unresponsive. The police were not called until 4:25 a.m., nearly 4 hours after concern was first noted. When officers arrived, the scene appeared unusual. The first officer, Sergeant Jack Clemens, later described inconsistencies. The room did not resemble a typical overdose scene. There were prescription bottles, but no water glass nearby. No visible residue of ingested pills. Toxicology later revealed high concentrations of barbiturates in her blood, specifically pentobarbital and chloral hydrate. Yet according to the coroner, there was no significant trace of capsules in her stomach. Some investigators later suggested the possibility of alternative administration, including unverified claims of a suppository, never officially confirmed. The position of the body also raised questions. She was found face down, still holding a telephone, a detail some considered staged.
Took Marilyn Monroe in on an overdose, and of course she succumbed at the hospital.
You mean that you were called to the house and you took her alive in coma?
In coma, yes. She was completely out.
In her interview with us, Mrs. Murray departed from the story she's told before. She now says a doctor was called before Marilyn died.
When he arrived, she was not dead. Because I was there then in the living room.
Witness statements began to shift. Eunice Murray initially told authorities she discovered Monroe around 3 a.m. Later accounts suggest closer to 1 a.m., a discrepancy of 2 hours. Dr. Ralph Greenson reportedly described Monroe as emotionally unstable earlier that evening and told colleagues she had been in a rage, yet these claims remained secondhand. Pat Newcomb was also present, reportedly anxious and distressed, but her exact actions remain unclear. Even more concerning was the delay in contacting authorities. By the time police were called, multiple individuals had already entered the scene.
Because I happened to talk to her on the phone that night, earlier in the evening, and she was happy and in a manic phase. So I thought her mental state was good. She sounded cheerful. Apparently something happened to suddenly depress her. Peter Lawford got a call from Marilyn, and she was mumbling. Apparently she was going under from the pill she took and perhaps was calling him as a cry for help. He didn't run over. He was the one who then called Mickey Rudin to tell Mickey Rudin that he'd had this call, and Marilyn sounded funny, and with Mickey check, and that's when Mickey called the housekeeper.
At approximately 10 p.m., Marilyn's attorney, Mickey Rudin, called Eunice Murray. Mrs. Murray assured him Marilyn was fine.
Dr. Greenson got there first. She was dead when he got there, and I went into the bedroom and made sure she was dead. There was some rigor mortis, yes, but it wasn't extreme yet. I suspected that she'd been dead at least a few hours. I believed she was in a manic phase and that something happened to suddenly depress her, and she grabbed pills there. That she had plenty of pills at the bedside. I think she was suddenly depressed, and in that sense, it was intentional.
In the months leading up to her death, Monroe had been prescribed more than a dozen psychoactive drugs, primarily barbiturates and also amphetamines. Her treatment combined medication with psychoanalysis. Her psychiatrist reportedly focused on Freudian analysis, while prescriptions were handled separately. She struggled with insomnia, a condition that worsened over time. Barbiturates, while common at the time, carried known risks including dependency, tolerance, and overdose. Toxicology confirmed lethal levels. Inconsistencies remained. Dr. Hyman Engelberg reportedly claimed he had not prescribed chloral hydrate despite its presence in her system.
She had entries in there that Bobby is out to get Jimmy Hoffa, and, quote, I'll put that SOB behind bars, or no what, something like that. She had entries in there regarding Bobby told me that he was going to have, Castro murdered. And the entries, most of them began with Bobby told. She was going to tell of the promises that he had made to her, which she considered lies, and had misled her. She was going to tell about her affair with the two Kennedys, that's JFK and Robert Kennedy. And I had asked her if she had told this to anybody else, meaning about the press conference coming up on Monday morning. And she said, yes, I've told a few people. And I told her, I said that I thought that would be very, very dangerous. And she said, well, she didn't care at this particular point because she was going to come out and tell the truth because these people had used her. Now she was going to go and tell the real story.
In the years following her death, theories emerged. Some suggested accidental overdose, others proposed intentional suicide. More controversial reports alleged connections to powerful figures, including Robert F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy. These claims suggested Monroe possessed sensitive information, possibly documented in a red diary, which was never officially recovered. Other theories referenced organized crime figures, including Sam Giancana, but remain unverified.
What Hoffa wanted was me to assist Bernie Spindell in developing a derogatory profile on Jack and Bobby Kennedy and their relationships with Marilyn Monroe, mainly, and any other women that might come into focus. And the strategy that was agreed upon was to use electronic devices. And the most logical place to set those devices was placed under carpets. They were placed in chandeliers and in ceiling fixtures. You know, you would have to look for the logical place to place the equipment. You have to gain entry also by either picking a lock or making some other kind of entry. As far as the wiretap is concerned, that's not something that the Secret Service in that date and time could pick up because you could wire a telephone 5 miles from a location. It'd have to be right there. You know, you talk about the mob. Hoffa was the mob. You can't be the head of the Teamsters Union unless you're approved by the mob. It's a whole big black circle. Barford showed up and completely disorientated and completely in a state of shock. One saying that Marilyn Monroe's dead, Bobby Kennedy was there, that he was spirited out of town by some airplane back up north, that they had gotten in a big fight that evening, and that he'd like to have me make arrangements to have someone go out to the house and pick up any and all information that was possible regarding any involvement between Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedys.
In 1982, the case was reopened and reviewed by the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. The conclusion was no evidence of homicide, and the original ruling stood. More than 6 decades later, the death of Marilyn Monroe remains officially closed as a probable suicide, yet the details resist simplicity. A delayed phone call, conflicting testimonies, missing elements, a scene some described as incomplete. History records her as an icon, a symbol of fame and vulnerability, but the final hours of her life remain partially obscured. Was this a tragedy fully understood, or one only partially revealed? In the absence of certainty, the questions persist, quietly unanswered.